My name is Joe. 20 years ago, my wife and I moved to Lake County with our 4 young children and settled down. In that time, we've worked, worshiped, played, and raised our family. Today, I've met the people and discovered the businesses and organizations that make up a vibrant, dynamic community. Join us as we share with you what makes South Lake great. I'm Joe, and Joe knows South Lake. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Wednesday, man. I am so excited to be back. Look, that clip yesterday was great. I really had fun doing it. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed doing it. I know that my wife was very amused by the noises I was making when she was pushing my body into those positions. So, but I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad you're with us. Happy South Lake morning. It's Wednesday, hump day, people would say. But you know what? Again, I'm so stoked about Mondays that Wednesdays don't have that same feel for me, man. If you are waiting for Wednesday to get excited about your week, I feel sorry for you. You got to work hard to stay excited about life. And actually, if you do a little bit of the work, it's not even really that hard. Well, enough about that. We have an amazing show for you today. We are going to talk about bagels. We have continuing our whole goal orientation for this month. We're going to talk about making a decision. Finally, we're going to have Cup of Joe. We're going to talk about unwavering faith from the book, The Miracle Equation. And finally, we're going to have my dear friend, Steve Smith, come on and talk about Housing for All of Lake County, an organization taking its place in correcting the housing issues that we have in our community. I'm really excited to talk to him. Steve is one of those guys, very highly educated about the subject, and we're going to talk about all that when he comes, but really excited to be here. You really need to pay attention to this. This is an issue that needs to be dealt with, and we need you to deal with it. But before you can deal with it, you got to know about it. So we're going to go to commercial break. We're going to hear from our family of sponsors, and when we get back, we're going to get started. I'll see you in a minute.
Welcome to Erica's Tea Room. Located in the heart of downtown Claremont, this specialty tea shop offers a traditional high tea experience that can be enjoyed with family and friends. While here, you can choose from over 100 teas from all over the world, and a multitude of teapots are available for purchase. Join us for lunch or choose from one of our special evening events. Call to make a reservation. Erica's Tea Room, making memories with every cup.
Hello, I'm Mary Rhodes with the Mortgage Firm, your local mortgage lender. I've helped thousands of families achieve the dream of homeownership in Lake County, and I would love to help you. Please read our reviews and visit us at mortgagefirmpros.com.
They are dependable, honest.
Every time I come over here, I've always feel like they go the extra mile for me.
The quality of not only the product they're providing, but them believing behind it.
I just trust them, they're a great company, great dealership.
And welcome back. It's so good to hear. Did I see Ford of Claremont? Ford of Claremont has joined our family of sponsors. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming on in, guys. You won't regret it. I know there is great. If you are doing business with people in South Lake County, if your customers live in South Lake, you need to be branding your business here. Good decision, Ford of Claremont, and we're looking forward to many, many years and great times together. All right, well, today is National Bagel Day. Bagel is a great treat. I love bagels. And one of the unique things about bagels, I don't even know if you know this, one of the things that makes a bagel is the fact that they actually boil it before they bake it. And that's one of the reasons it gets that nice chewy consistency, because it doesn't rise like a cake donut or a pastry does, because they boil it first to hone in that shape. Now, the beauty of bagels, for me, is all the stuff you can put on it. A bagel tends to become, my favorite way to have a bagel is grilled right on a flat top. That doesn't happen very often. Most often they're toasted, because people who will actually grill want to have a flat top to grill it on. I don't even do it at home. I stick it in the toaster. But the beauty of bagels is it makes a great a great foundation to put things on. You might not be in a smoked salmon. I am. Different kinds of cream cheese, of good veggie cream cheese on an onion bagel. Big old cup of coffee. I'm in heaven. But I've also been known to put on the smoked salmon and the capers and all the pickled onions and all of that stuff. That's really when I kind of got my nose in the air. That's when I'm feeling my Park Avenue coming on, you know. It's a big thing. New York bagels is a big thing. And much like pizza, you cannot get a bagel made anywhere in the world the same way they make them in New York, because we don't have the water New York has, and we are not at the unique sea level that makes pastry and dough rise the way it does in New York City. So you can get something similar, but it's not going to be exactly. How about it? I like a chewy bagel with some toughness to it, but some people don't. Some people like the more bready ones. You have a preference, Jay?
I guess my favorite bagel would probably be the cinnamon crunch bagel from Panera. So my levels of bagel are not very off the beaten path. I'm pretty middle of the road.
Yeah. Well, having not lived in an old city like New York or Boston, I would expect that. You know, I would expect you to be more of the popular variety of bagels. Sweet bagels, very, very popular. I never wanted my kids to have sweet bagels because I felt it was breakfast food. You shouldn't be getting candy. Of course, I didn't let them have sweet cereals either. Well, Miss Pat didn't let them have sweet cereals. That wasn't my fault. So, all right. Well, that's enough about bagels. Look, you want to enjoy a bagel today? Celebrate National Bagel Day. Go have a bagel. Put your favorite topping on it, and think of Joe Knows South Lake. That's how you can celebrate today. Decide. Look, when you want to achieve. I was having a great conversation with Mary Rhodes this morning. Mary and I meet every now and then for breakfast, and we had our breakfast today. Had to cut it short because I had to get to the show. But we were talking about our goals, and the real truth is, if you want to have a goal, we talked on Monday about quitting. You have to determine in your heart that no matter what comes, you're not going to quit. But part of that is you have to decide. You know, I know so many people that say, well, I'd like to lose 30 to 50 pounds, or I'd like to be in better shape, or I'd like to make more money. What the hell do you mean? Look, if you say I want to make more money, but you make $100 more, you succeeded. Is that really what you wanted? No, it isn't. Most people, when they say they want to make more money, they want to make the next level of income. A bigger level of maybe 2 levels of income. When I say I want to lose weight, I don't want to just weigh less. I want to weigh a certain number. You got to decide. And once you decide, then you can activate, this is your cup of Joe, unwavering faith. We talked about the miracle equation the other day. The first part of this equation, and again, no spoilers because it's written right on the cover, written by Hal Elrod, is to have unwavering faith. And one of the cool things about this book is it says you can have unwavering faith, but then it gives you some real ideas. And the idea I want to talk about today is a borrowed mentor. You know, there are a lot of us in our lives. I love my dad to death, but my dad, because of his own struggles and baggage, wasn't a very good leader in my life. He was an influence, but he wasn't always necessarily a font of wisdom or encouragement. Okay. And some of us live lives that we don't have a person in our life that we know that can be that fount of wisdom and encouragement. But you know what? If you are a reader, or you follow some blogs, or you follow some podcasts, you can literally have what I call the distance mentor. And here in the Miracle Equation, he talks about one way to get and develop unwavering faith is to borrow it. You know, so often in my life, I had to find my mentors through the authors and the celebrities that I followed. One of my mentors, crazy as it sounds, Will Smith. Most positive guy out there. I love his stuff, okay? Queen Latifah, one of the most positive, smartest people out there. I follow her stuff. And I could go Mark Cuban and Robert Herkovic and, Hal Elrod and Honore Corder and all of these authors and business people that I've followed their story. And the thing that I get from them is the ability to believe in what I'm doing, to believe in whatever I've decided I really want. You know what's common about all of these people? They not only make the decision, but nobody could ever convince you. You look at somebody who's is the top of their game. There came a point in their life where they weren't at the top of their game. They weren't the accepted leader in the industry, but you could not convince them they wouldn't be. Unwavering faith. Now, there are several ways to get unwavering faith. We can talk about more of them tomorrow. But I say, look, if you don't have a mentor in your life that's constantly telling you, look, this is the nature of life. I know it's really hard, but you can get there. You get Mary Rhodes, sweet, sweet champion in my life, and has become a mentor of mine. We started just as friends, getting to know each other, but she always encourages me. She always tells me that I have it. I mean, we were talking this morning in about a circle that I'm in of guys who are highly educated. They're highly experienced. They're very wealthy. And I said to her, I'm playing out of my league. And she stopped me immediately. You are in your league, Joe. You may not have their experience. You may not have their education, but you are in their league. You need that. And sometimes you got to borrow it from somebody else. Anyways, we'll talk more about this tomorrow. But that's enough for today. You need some faith. You need a mentor and you don't have one. Keep an eye out for one. But if you don't have one in your life, borrow one. And I can give you 1,000 resources to find one. So message me if you need this. And I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you, a cup of coffee, even just a phone call to get you started on how to find some unwavering faith. All right. Now, finally, we're going to hear from our sponsors again. And when we get back, we are going to have Steve Smith with the Housing for All of Lake County join us. This is a very important interview. You need to be here. If you own a house or you would like to someday, you need to know about this situation. We'll be right back, and when we get back, Steve will be with us. See you in a minute.
50 West now pre-leasing 28,900 square feet of commercial professional office space in Claremont. Conveniently located on Highway 50, less than 2 miles from the Turnpike. A first of its kind in the Southeast, this pristine building creates the perfect blend of nature and modern design. If you seek a high-level image that matches your business, reserve your space today. 50 West, unique, quality, Class A. For more information on leasing, contact Ashley Punn at 407-403-4165. Karen Arlano at 407-948-0767. Or visit lease@50west.com.
Burgerum, located in the Epic Theater Shopping Plaza on Highway 27, is the premier destination for gourmet burgers. Using only the freshest ingredients, Burgerum offers a variety of burgers, salads, wings, and a whole lot more. Beef, chicken, lamb, fish, and even veggie. Burgerum has something for everyone, no matter your dietary preference. Burgerum, millions of possibilities, endless combinations.
Hello, I'm Mary Rhodes with the Mortgage Firm, your local mortgage lender. I've helped thousands of families achieve the dream of homeownership in Lake County, and I would love to help you. Our team has over 30 years of experience helping first-time homebuyers, veterans, move-up buyers, seasoned investors, and more. Please read our reviews and visit us at mortgagefirmpros.com.
Joe Knows South Lake would like to thank the following sponsors. and welcome back. Hey, always good to hear from our family of sponsors. And once again, I know I say it a lot, but it really is true. I don't have words to tell you how much I appreciate your support. Each and every one of you, whether you know it or not, are a distance mentor of mine. Anyways, so we are joined by Steve Smith. Steve, welcome to the show. Thank you. You out there may have heard me refer to Steve. Steve has kind of been in the periphery in our orbit. Obviously, we've talked to Stephanie and so many that you've influenced through some of your work. I'm glad to finally get you on the show. Steve is a friend of the show. He's a friend of the station, and this is the first time we've had a chance to get him on, so I'm really, really excited. I was excited when you said you were willing to come on, So let me tell you a little bit about Steve. He is the president of Housing for All of Lake County. He was the co-founder with his wife Linda of and the previous president of the New Beginnings of Central Florida. He sits on 3 separate boards that deal with the housing problem in the state. You sit on the Housing Board of Lake County, right. Housing Board of Lake County, the State Council on the Homeless, and sits on the board of the Mid-Florida Homeless Coalition. Steve, I know your story, okay? And while your story is somewhat legendary within the New Beginning circle, tell us that story that you talked about, how you first came to Florida, and then how the idea for working with the homeless came to you.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate letting me come on the show this morning and talk about the challenges I've seen since we moved here. I've retired from the banking world, moved down to Lake County with my wife Linda with the intent that would help care for our parents. I knew when to get involved in doing something. I wasn't sure what it was, and just one day after church, I met a fellow that was looking for a job. And I sat down, we had lunch together, and afterwards I said, I'll take you home, and tomorrow I'll pick you up, and then I'll get no transportation, and I'll take you, get a job, making some connections in the community, actively involved in the chamber.
Where was he living at the time?
He was living at a place behind 7-Eleven on Hancock and 50 in Claremont in the woods. Shocked me because it was a tent. I never met anybody directly living in that situation, and so let me make a few phone calls. I'm not going to feel good tonight about just sleeping in the woods. Called a few of my church pastors, another pastor I knew. Could not find any place for him, so I took him, put him in a motel, praying about what I'm going to do with this gentleman. And did some research and found that there was more people losing jobs in homes in 2007. Fortunately, I was able to take Randy out the next day and get him a job, but I still take him back to the hotel. And I realized that was not a good place to be because the surroundings weren't the best to try to help him move his life forward. So I approached 11 other community leaders.
Back in those days, I just want a little bit of clarification for the folks. Back in those days, those weekly hotels were more of a repository for drugs and alcoholism and other vices and crime. It just wasn't, if you're trying to put your life on track, it was a hard place to do it.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that he was not in a good environment at nighttime.
Right.
Daytime, I could witness to him, the people I got him a job with was helping him work. There was struggles in life, but the nighttime was not a good environment. So essentially, I approached some other people. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a pastor, I'm not an accountant, I'm an attorney. I said, let's come together. And I said, let's get a group together of people that can come in and start working with these people. I'm going to get them off the street, get them a job, get them healed from whatever problems they're dealing with. It could be an addiction issue, it could be a self-esteem issue, and I'll go out and raise money. So that was back in 2007. And I started to realize the theme of everything I was running into, where do I find housing? They're all getting jobs now, they couldn't find housing. And so I stepped down a couple of years ago from the New Beginnings of Leadership and said, I want to focus on strictly on housing.
Let's slow down for a second. So the thing I think is important about this story is you saw a need, and we talked about how you've never been the kind of guy just want to read a book or write a check. You wanted to get your hands dirty, right? And I mean, maybe that's a bad thing because we're dealing with people. There's no such thing as getting your hands dirty. But I think you get in the ditch with the guy, And you started New Beginnings of Central Florida, which has become easily one of the premier homeless programs, certainly in the state. From conversations with you and others, I know other people are trying to emulate what we've done here, and it's only 13 years. Okay, so we fast forward to now. You've taken it to the place you wanted to take it. Time for somebody else to maybe come in and take it the next step. And you step away and you think you're done. Right? Am I correct?
No, that was never the intent. The intent was I wanted to focus only on housing.
Because you saw the new problem.
I couldn't work both. I said I can't work on the transformation process as well as the housing. I told the board I want to step away so I can just focus on creating more housing because people that were getting jobs cannot find housing in the county.
So, well, let's make that transition then. So, you've started this organization, or actually you become the president of this organization because the need that you saw wasn't necessarily, I mean, homelessness is a problem, but I think you saw that if you could solve this affordability problem, if there was housing for people, and we've talked about this on the show before, is that the problem is, if you're wealthy, if you make $85,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year, whether it's a rental or whether it's a purchase, you can get a home. But if you don't, what did you say that number was?
In Central Florida right now, it's 115,000 people making less. That's the number of units we need to cover the people making less than $35,000. That's the shortage we have right now in Central Florida.
115,000 units.
Units are short for those people making
in Central Florida.
They're making less than $15,000 a year, $35,000 a year. That's correct.
So you saw this as a need. You saw you'd never solve the homeless problem until you solve this problem.
That's absolutely correct.
So tell us. Give us a little insight. Why are we in this situation? I mean, where did it happen? Are people just not? Are there that many people coming to Florida? Or
I see two things. One is that again, when I made this transition, I was asked by the president of Florida Housing to get involved and try to not only lead others into recognizing the problem, but also working on solutions, creating more housing. And so that's why they provided the money for me at New Beginnings to build the workforce housing there at Citrus Tower for 96 working families making less than $35,000. Project the mayor of Claremont asked me to do something for seniors. Claremont has over 550 seniors that are only living on Social Security income. Asked me to do something for seniors. Just broke ground another housing development just for seniors alone 2 weeks ago. But I think that the situation I see is that wages are rising about 11% a year. Housing costs are rising 11% a year. Wages are rising about 3% a year at those lower income levels. So if you got 11% in housing and you got only 3% in wages, that's one of the major reasons why we're into this. People can't afford those rising housing costs.
And of course, this gets into, and I've talked to other people about government officials about the Sadowski Fund, how the state government keeps rating the money that's supposed to be providing for this is not going to this, going to other things. So I mean, there's a level here of a brewing problem that's just going to get worse. It doesn't seem like there's any, other than guys like you and people like the Housing for All, is nobody seems to be concerned about this. They don't seem to want to deal with it until it actually becomes a major issue.
What we don't want is another LA or San Francisco. Never be that magnitude, but we don't want people just sleeping in the streets because they have no place to go. I still meet a lot of people living in cars, living in the woods. They're working, but they just can't find affordable housing.
And so we need affordable housing. And I talked to Brian Broadway on the show from Find, Feed, and Restore. And, he pointed out, well, if we don't have places for these people to live, then nobody's going to want to live here because stores aren't going to be here. If restaurants can't get employees, right, they're going to move someplace they can get employees so they can meet the need. And that's going to affect the prices in our community.
Right. The economic engine of any community has to have workforce housing. Without that, you don't have worker bees and you don't have people want to live here because the services aren't here. And that's why you need to have workforce housing.
So you actually have a development company, though, that works on it. And this is quite a unique situation. Tell us about that. How does the development company work? You had somebody ask, but I'm sure, again, this was developed out of a need more than anything else.
The state approached me several years ago and said, we want to get more nonprofits involved in housing. He said, most of the people doing social services, like New Beginnings, they're focused on services, not on housing. And so that's why I told the board I'm going to step away. I'll form another nonprofit just to create affordable housing, because one of the keys in affordable housing is that you need to have those support services. And so the for-profit developers looking to spend as little amount of money as possible. The nonprofits are more concerned about the client, the tenant, the resident in that apartment. So there was, at that time, 2 years ago, there was only 5 nonprofits in the state that are providing housing for the working household. And so I formed another nonprofit with some other board members have the same passion, same concern. And so that organization, that company is designed strictly to use the Sadowski funds, using tax credits provided by the federal government, so we can create large apartment complexes. When I say large, somewhere around 100 units in any given community. Some communities are receptive to that. Some communities are still trying to realize what the problem is and making those changes.
You know, that's actually, I'm glad you touched on that subject, because I wanted to ask you, I know that from knowing you, you have a challenge with the communities and acceptance, because the minute you say affordable housing, people think Section 8. How are you overcoming that mentality?
That's a great question, Joe, because a lot of people came from the north and they perceived the Section 8, the large projects, tall stories, a multitude of housing there, and all of a sudden becomes a blighted community. The great news,
center for crime and corruption. And
absolutely correct. The difference is this, is that the federal government has realized that's not what they want to develop. And so they're giving money to the state of Florida. State of Florida is providing this. They're looking for smaller projects, some around 100 units, give or take a few. They don't want a high rise. They're looking for those 3-story buildings. Plus, they come out and do 2 things. Number one, they evaluate the property every month to make sure that it looks the same the day it was built. That over the years, they want to make sure it's maintained. Plus, a large percentage of that rent is being paid goes in reserve. So when the air conditioners go bad, the roofs go bad, the place needs painted, there's money there to do those things. That was a problem. There was little oversight on the Section 8, and that's why the crime took place. That's why the roofs, the air conditioning, and the places were started to run down. We have a project in Claremont that was built 25 years ago called Osprey Ridge. City officials didn't even know that was an affordable housing development until I pointed out to them when he did a tour of that and said, we'll give you support because we got rid of the stigma of what you talk about, the Section 8, the projects up north, and they agreed to give me the approval for the rezoning to develop Woodwinds. But again, show and tell. So here's what we're doing today. It's a new regime, a new concept coming in. Let's make those look pretty and keep them pretty over the years, and let's provide services inside the facility to help the people move in their journey, using nonprofits to get involved in trying to.
And that way those communities become, they don't become an anchor to the city or to crime. They become a participating, productive member of society, a place that people can go to when hard times hit or when they're building out of hard times. Look, we're going to go to our commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about this, a little bit about some of the solutions I know you're trying to get, and maybe some of the challenges we have. So don't go away. We're going to hear from our family sponsors. We'll be right back with Steve Smith. Joe Knows South Lake would like to thank the following sponsors.
Your CBD store Claremont provides a wide range of high-quality, full and broad-spectrum CBD products. Topical creams, tinctures, water solubles, edibles, and even CBD products for your pets. From soil to oil, your CBD store Claremont sources and provides third-party lab tests for all products so that you know exactly what you're getting. Stop by your CBD store Claremont today to speak with one of our knowledgeable staff members to find the right CBD product for you.
50 West, pre-leasing now in Claremont. A first-of-its-kind commercial development in the Southeast. Contact us today to reserve your spot in this historic development. 50 West, unique, quality, Class A. For more information on leasing, contact Ashley Punn at 407-403-4165. Karen Arlano at 407-948-0767. Or Visit leaseat50west.com.
Joe Knows South Lake would like to thank the following sponsors. Welcome back. Once again, always good to hear from our sponsors. I'm not going to go into that much because we have so much to cover with Steve. We are joined still by Steve Smith of Housing for All of Lake County. Steve, we were just talking in the break about some of the challenges that you had 7 years ago as opposed to now that you have Woodwinds built. You have an example. I mean, it really is, I hate to use the word, but almost a flagship. You can now show people what you mean by affordable housing, not free housing, not housing for people to sit on welfare for the next 17 years. These are people who actually, it's workforce housing. That's people who have jobs, who are finding jobs, who are moving on. You know, something like Woodwinds is it subsidized? It's not subsidized. It is subsidized.
It is not subsidized.
It is not subsidized.
They're working people paying the rent.
Now, with Woodwinds, once they achieve a certain income level, it's all based on their income.
Correct.
And once they achieve a certain level, they move on, right? So there's a concept of helping people. You're really giving people a leg up. Mm-hmm. But there are other solutions as well. Mm-hmm. And I know that Lake County, as much as we love it, mm-hmm. Seems to have some challenges. You know, you have some unique out-of-the-box solutions. Weren't you telling me that there are some other counties have made some changes? What kind of changes do we need to make here in the county? Give us an example.
So, Joe, several years ago, I was challenged by the director of the Chamber of Commerce for Orlando and said, you need to get your group together to work on housing. And so he said, you need to get your mayor, your county commissioners, your law enforcement, your housing directors, people engaged that were being affected by the lack of affordable housing. And so we formed a task force here several years ago, meeting on a regular basis to talk about the challenges. Everything came back to housing. So just recently, we formed a nonprofit corporation called Housing for All of Lake County, with the intent is to try to take the changes that are being happening throughout the country, making affordable housing realistic and actually happening. So some of the challenges we're seeing in Lake County that's being changed in Orange County, Sumter County, the small county north of us, another small county to the south of us, Polk County, and we also have Hernando County. One of the big challenges, just to begin with, density. In Lake County, the density only allows to be 12 units per acre. Well, that was good when you're building on a wide scale, you're building a bunch of ranches. Today, we can go vertical. We have fire trucks that go 3, 4, 5 stories tall. And so many counties are moving up to 24, 30 units per acre. That in itself, you can have more units on land, which is becoming very expensive. Another big challenge we have is just the size of the houses. Today, the average size home is 2,600 square feet, and the average price is getting close to $300,000. People, like I said, that $115,000, people can't afford that $36,000 income, can't afford these houses. So what they're saying, let's build smaller, let's build micro homes. Let's get them down to 1,000 square feet. What we grew up in, 3-bedroom, 1 bath was sufficient.
Right. Yeah.
Then we're
with 1,100, 1,200 square feet.
Right, exactly.
You didn't have to have a garage. You didn't have to have an enclosed patio.
Exactly.
Right.
And so the other thing that's been starting to be widespread throughout the country and Florida is smaller homes. They call it tiny homes or micro homes. Mm-hmm. These are maybe only 500 square feet. And people say, oh, I wouldn't live in that. So, well, people are looking for something safe, decent, and affordable.
Right.
They can afford something that's going to cost them, let's say, $300 a month. They can't afford something that's going to cost them $2,000 a month. And so you got to keep in mind. So the purpose of Housing for All is to take what other communities are doing and making a lot of these code changes that were on the books for 40 years and retrofitting those into what the needs are in the community. Housing for All is an advocacy group wanting to educate the community, say we have a housing crisis right here in Lake County, and here's changes could take place to ease that crisis.
Yeah, and I know you and I have talked about what I think is a unique concept is the container homes, and we looked at some of this with Brian Broadway, but this is a unique concept, easily constructed, inexpensively put together. This could be a solution, but there are some challenges in our zoning and regulatory fields, right? I mean, it's not just people saying not in my backyard. You have land you could put it on, but there are challenges coming from the local governments.
So let's talk about the container homes, because I've been doing the research on this for the last year. Number one,
and Jay's brought some of these up. We can get just to remind people what these things look like. I don't want them to think of like a tent city with a hole in the wall.
Right.
You know, these are container homes.
Here's what we do with a container home. Number one, we put hardy board on them or stucco, and we put a gable roof on them. You never know it's a container home.
Right.
Habitat's been building these right now, and they're shipping them to Bahamas, which are allowing those $15,000 for a container home. You can't build a stick-put home today for $15,000.
No, you can't.
That includes all your mechanicals, your electric, your plumbing. And again, gable roof, hardy board, you never know it's a container home. You can make it in a one-bedroom. You can add two together, make a two-bedroom, add three together for a three-bedroom. The economy of scale is so much lesser. So what's the challenge? Number one, the stigma, just like Section 8 housing up north. Oh, we don't want a container home. How do you know it's a container home? You're not going to know that when you look at the end product. Number two, the regulations are small. A lot of regulations don't allow small homes. Number three, again, just awareness that they don't want us to have that stigma of, quote, having a container home community.
Do you know what, again, it's so important to get that idea out. And I could see your challenge is that people, the minute you say affordable, they're thinking free. You know, and this is not, I have a son who just got a promotion at work. He's going to be in that range we're talking about. He's a young guy, couple of years out of college. And his biggest challenge to moving to a new position with his promotion is finding an apartment that he can afford.
So, Joe, let's talk about the myths. I want to get this to our listeners to understand about the myths of affordable housing, because you're right, there's a stigma. Number one, because I ran in this both in, I did Woodwinds and I'm building a senior project in my own community right next to it.
Right.
And these people I know and I've known for years. Number one statement is it's going to decrease my value of my house. You know, as a realtor, when you look to appraise a house, you base it on other houses being sold in the community. You don't make a comparison about the apartment. So that's a myth.
And the truth is a change in density, an increase in density increases the value of homes.
That's right. Number two myth, they say it's going to increase crime. I had someone that tried to come to the council meeting when I did Woodwind and said it's going to increase crime when you have apartments. I had on record with Chief Broadway, that you know from the city of Claremont, said there's no correlation between apartments and houses for crime. It's all based on what takes place in the neighborhood.
That's right.
Here's the good news about apartments. Number one, we do a tenant selection based upon, we're not going to bring in pedophiles. You buy a home, you have no idea what's coming in.
Right.
A guy could just came out of jail.
Yeah, you can't restrict that.
You can't restrict it. Apartments, we have a set of rules. We're going to restrict that. The background checks, we can do that. And
you know, I want to say too, and a lot of people don't realize this because, you know, the Villages is very good at painting all the good news, but they have a high, because they have a high concentration of homes, but there's no churches, there's no schools. So in those realms, they can live far enough away. And if they buy a home, you can't legally look at somebody's background and say, I'm not going to sell this to you because of what you did. It's discriminatory.
And let's take it one step further. If you buy a house next to me and you're acting up and you're causing all kinds of problems, I can't make you sell that house.
Yeah, there's nothing I can do.
If you're living at Woodwinds and you're acting up, you are going to be evicted.
You're causing a problem, traffic all night long. That's right.
You're evicted.
Yeah.
That's the value, and that's a myth that people have. They don't realize that. And
that was the problem, though. I mean, people don't understand, I think, that was the problem with even the Section 8 homes. The Section 8 concept was a good concept, but it lacked management.
That's right. Oversight.
Oversight. It became an entitlement, and there was no oversight to and then as society changed and norms changed and culture changed, there was no accountability for residents of these places.
That's true. And to take it a step further, that my struggle with Section 8 is that these are people that don't work and don't want to work. Woodwinds, and again, this is the new direction the state's going, the federal government's going, is they want to do tax credit funding where people are working and they just don't have enough income to afford the typical rent, so they're subsidized on the front end on the construction cost. You keep the people who don't have to pay as much because the construction costs aren't as high. And therefore, these are working people. These aren't people that are on, like you said, the welfare rolls.
They're trying not to be on the welfare rolls.
Exactly.
You know, and I was just for disclosure, I want to be fair to the Section 8 program. It's not all people that don't want to work. I don't want people to think that we think that Section 8 housingers are all leeches. There's a lot of people there that need that housing.
Many seniors, many disabled people have Section 8.
Many seniors and disabled people,
disabled
because it's
veterans,
the only way they can
That's
afford.
correct. There's a lot of special needs families that cannot work, and they're on Section 8. It's a great program.
And again, it was the bad apples because of lack of oversight that gave Section 8 that stigma.
Correct,
so I just didn't want people to think you and I are thinking that's, don't like to paint a broad brush.
It's a great program for the right situation.
Right. And much like workforce housing will be. And that's the beauty of it. Again, the truth is, anytime you see, as a realtor, I see this. Communities that in 2004, 2005 were just horrible communities, right? There was a large percentage of renters.
Yes.
Blighted. A large percent. Even, and we're not even talking like the lowest of like crime neighborhoods and drugs, but even neighborhoods that were beat on and not necessarily prime neighborhoods, what you see is a large percentage of renters. The beauty of the crash to most of these neighborhoods was that now people who couldn't afford to buy before can buy. And when your percentage changes to have a higher percentage of owners, the community changes. Much like workforce housing, when you have people getting up and going to work in the morning, they're not putting up with the party all night long, right? And so you tend to change the value of a community if you can change that concept. We're talking about people being able to afford it, not the difference between we want to give something away, but we want to give people an opportunity to be a working, productive member of society, just helping people do that. You and I could go on for 5 more hours. We brought up your Facebook page here. It's over here over your shoulder. Take a look at that. Lead us through that a little bit.
And look at that picture. Every year we've been doing, last 2 years, I brought the president of Florida Housing in to do a forum. And that picture represents some of the people I brought in, not only the president of Florida Housing Coalition, Jamie Ross, talk about what other communities are doing, but I also brought it closer to home we brought the director of housing in from from Orange County, Osceola County, even Daytona, to talk about what they're doing in their communities to try to inspire the people in Lake County to make changes. We had not only business leaders there, but more importantly, we had the government officials who can make these code changes. And also the big shortage we're having is just counties have to recognize in the cities, we have to put money into housing. You can do that either by reducing your fees, for application fees. I know our impact fees for Woodwinds was $1.5 million out of the cost. We had to finance by the state. That's very expensive impact fees. Our application process, it was $10,000. We're looking to do something down right now in Lake County for an application fee. These are high fees. These are things that the county or the city should be waiving those fees or reducing those fees to make it affordable. And so we've been doing Housing for All.
And I can say that if they did that, then you might actually have private entities developing. The reason private builders are not developing workforce housing is because it's so expensive. Right. Is they don't get a break for doing it. Right. There's no incentive for them to do it.
I was at a meeting last week and it was very evident. This was put on by Orange County. They said currently impact fees are based upon the unit itself, how many bedrooms. They're saying they're looking to make that change and make it on square footage. So let's say you have a 3,000 square foot home, you're paying the same impact fees on a 4-bedroom house or 3-bedroom house it would be a 1,200 square foot home, a 3 or 4 bedroom. They're saying let's cut the impact fees and make it only based upon square footage.
That's a genius idea.
Right.
Genius. And because then the guy with the lower house is paying a lower fee, and there'll be an incentive for builders then to do that.
Absolutely right, and that's.
Do you know what? We're going to run out of time. I want to make sure we cover two subjects that I ask every guest because we can get off on a rabbit trail. What are the two subjects that are most important? You said to me one of the things that you wanted to make sure people knew is that this is a serious problem. Mm-hmm. So talk about that for half a second.
Well, when I say we have 550 seniors in Claremont alone, that only living on Social Security, I know they have a housing problem because they can't afford the upkeep of their house.
That's if they own one.
Yeah. That's right, if they own one. When we announced we were going to build a house for seniors, I can't tell you that people have called me personally and said, I'm living in an apartment. I can't afford my apartment. The rents are just skyrocketing. Can you get these built overnight? Well, this is a process. It takes years to put this together. And so that's one thing that's very important to realize. We have a real crisis in the county for lack of affordable housing. And the other thing is let's talk about is that the changes. I said we have to bring about change both at the city level and the county level to make these houses available. Like you said, private builders will get more involved. Our impact fees in Lake County, a typical house today is about over $20,000. At our housing board meeting today, a housing builder said he had to pay impact fees of $23,000. We have another person on our housing board at Lake County. He only builds affordable housing. He said, I can't build them the total cost less than $200,000 today, 3-bedroom, 1 bath.
How's he supposed to make any money on that?
And that's the other problem.
Right. Which is why they're so expensive.
Right.
Let me, I just want to get back to this serious problem. I think that people really need to understand that, and we talked about this with Brian Broadway. If you're a 2-income family and something happens to one of those incomes, you're in need of workforce housing. Right. It's you're not. I mean, unless you're living in a house that's completely paid off, you are going to be that guy that's suddenly trying to decide: do I live in a car or do I pay my rent? Right. Or food. How many kids do I have? So this is a problem that affects everybody, or could potentially affect everybody. This is the zombie virus of housing. Okay. The other thing we wanted to do is I asked you, what can people do? What's the most effective thing people can do to help? I mean, obviously, we're going to have you look in the camera and tell people how to get in touch with you if they want to volunteer, if they want to take part, come to the meetings or do some donations. But realistically, what is the most important thing the public can do to help this situation?
I think that this needs to be a conversation in every group that you're involved with, whether it be the chamber functions, whether it be at the civic groups, the Kiwanis, the Rotary. It should be a discussion at your church groups. I think this is a community-wide problem. This is not the government. I can't say the government alone can solve this. It has to be a total community to get engaged. So, number one, talk about it and say, what do we do about this? And how do we embrace affordable housing instead of saying, not in my backyard, send it to another community, because that's been the trend we've seen over the years. The second thing, we really need to, everybody knows some elected official of one sort or another, both at the city level, the county level, the state level. You mentioned the Sadowski. There's the three. If the state would fund all the money was collected for housing from the sales tax on real estate, Lake County would get $4 million. Last year they cut it back to $500,000. Doesn't go very far in a whole county, $500,000. So we need to continually encourage our elected officials to fund affordable housing, reduce costs, fund the state funding Sadowski funds, and then make code changes to allow more of this.
Yeah, that funding is about 12% of what they should have gotten. I know if I showed up to work and I only got 12% of what I should get paid, I'd be really angry. And I think that people don't understand that this is their money. It's being taken from them.
Right.
You said the thing we deal with here is the government's willingness. Okay, the elected officials' will to do something, and until they really feel that they're going to start losing their job if they don't do something about it, then they're not going to do anything about it. And so I want to encourage everybody. I think, as you mentioned, reach out to your elected officials. You have to engage your elected officials. Right. They have to hear about, if they hear about this from one person every single day, if every elected official heard about this from a different person every single day, they'd start paying attention. Look, Steve, I want you to take a look at this. Tell people the best way to get involved, to help out, if they want to reach you or donate or volunteer. Tell people how they can get involved.
Well, the first thing is you need to really talk to your local elected officials, people you voted for, you supported during the last election, whether it be at the city, county, state level, and really plead upon the fact that we do need this crisis to be resolved in our community. The second thing is that we need to do is that we have meetings regularly, try to do it monthly. We've been planning this corporation we just put together this last fall. We've done a lot of planning. We now have a mission statement. We have an action step plan about how we can go forward. Is that we have a Facebook page. We'd like people to look at that. We're in the process of expanding that and starting to share a lot more stories on that. So look at Housing for All Lake County Facebook page. And if you want to reach me, you can certainly send me an email anytime. My Housing for All email is Steve Smith at housingforallakecounty.org.
I think we just brought that up for you. Okay. So we see it's a fairly new email. So we had to make sure Steve had the right email. It's okay. We all make those kind of mistakes. Look, Steve, I want to thank you for joining. This is such an important, I'm a realtor, but this is an important subject. I'm encouraging people all the time. Do not ignore the people less fortunate than you when you are thinking about housing. Because one, you could easily be them, but two, you ignore it long enough, it will affect your values. If there is no workforce housing, if there's no place affordable for young people to come, and again, my son, we've talked about families and people that, but a lot of this is affecting the kids coming out of college. Right? They can't find a place to live. They got to find somebody they like. They live with you. You want your kids to live with you forever? I don't. We need affordable housing. Anyway, Steve, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate you. Look, I want to encourage you. There is greatness inside you. Ooh, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you know somebody who should be a guest on Joe Knows South Lake, please reach out to me. The information is on the screen. If you are selling to customers in South Lake County, you need to be branding on South Lake TV. Reach out to me, reach out to Jay. I am sure one of us can have a conversation that will help you. Affordable programs, a wide variety of things you can do to get your business branded right here on South Lake TV. Finally, there is greatness inside you, as Steve is doing and has been doing for a long time, using his greatness to bring out the greatness in others, touching lives and changing the world. You can do. 2, use your greatness to bring out the greatness in somebody else. Touch a life today with a random act of kindness. You'll change the world and you'll never regret it. And I'll see you tomorrow, and I love you. Bye-bye. My name is Joe. 20 years ago, my wife and I moved to Lake County with our 4 young children and settled down. In that time, we've worked, worshiped, played, and raised our family. Today, I've met the people and discovered the businesses and organizations that make up a vibrant, dynamic community. Join us as we share with you what makes South Lake great. I'm Joe, and Joe Knows South Lake. Joe Knows South Lake would like to thank the following sponsors: